Nerdorama Retro Nostalgia Time. Windows 3.1. 15 Fascinating Facts. Number 1. Let's take a quick journey through the early days of Windows. It all began with Windows 1.0 in November 1985, selling just 50,000 copies. A modest start. Things picked up with Windows 2.0 in December of 1987, hitting 2 million copies. But it wasn't until Windows 3.0 in May of 1990 that things exploded with 11 million copies sold. Then came the star of our show, Windows 3.1 in April 1992, which sold a whopping 25 million copies and became a defining moment in personal computing history. Number 2. Priced at $149 US and selling 3 million copies in the first 2 months, Windows 3.1 added multimedia extensions allowing for sound cards, MIDI, CD audio, Super VGA monitors, and it also increased the speed of the modem it would support to 9600 bps. For many of us that were into computers back in the day, it was the first version of Windows we actually used. Here's a copy advertising Microsoft Windows 3.1 for $179.95. This is from one of our Australian catalogues. We, of course, had to pay more because the Australian dollar has always sucked. Here's the cover. The Gamesmen. They're actually still around, and I'm sure back in the day, they definitely got the clearance and the copyright to have all of these figures on the cover. How many of them can you name? Number 3. The rivalry between Windows 3.1 and OS 2. A story of friendship, betrayal, and fierce competition. Back in the late 80s, Microsoft and IBM originally joined forces to create OS 2, hoping to build the next generation operating system together. But things quickly soured as Microsoft pivoted to focus on its own Windows. Windows 3.1 was simple, user-friendly, cheaper, winning over home users and businesses alike. Meanwhile, IBM stuck with OS 2, boasting better stability and multitasking, but it struggled with marketing and lacked software support. Windows 3.1 ended up dominating the market, becoming the go-to platform for PCs, while OS 2 slowly faded into the background, remembered more as a what could have been. Shown here in this article from the Spokesman Review and Spokane Chronicle from March 18, 1992, we have a gorgeous photo of Bill Gates handing a copy of Windows 3.1 to a Federal Express driver to get it into the hands of the waiting customers. This article talks about the rivalry between OS 2 and Microsoft. Feel free to pause the article and give it a read. Number 4. While many people think of Windows 3.1 as an operating system, it's actually more of a graphical overlay for DOS. What does this mean? Well, Windows 3.1 relied on MS-DOS as its backbone to handle the essential tasks behind the scenes, like managing files, allocating memory, and running low-level software. When you booted up your PC, you'd first land in DOS, and from there you'd launch Windows as a separate program. This setup allowed Windows to offer a more user-friendly interface with icons, menus, and windows, but it still needed DOS to do the heavy lifting. This hybrid approach made sense at the time, but it also meant you were constantly switching between command lines and click-based interfaces. This also worked well for Microsoft as users needed to purchase DOS and Windows, which meant more money for Microsoft. Number 5. Windows 3.1's Program Manager was the central way to manage and launch programs, a precursor to today's Start menu. In a time before the Start menu or desktop icons, the Program Manager was how we navigated the system. It allowed us to create groups of shortcuts, making it easy to categorize and find programs. For many, this was the first introduction to a more organized and graphical way of managing software. The ability to customize groups and even add third-party applications made it an essential tool, shaping the way we interact with our PCs. It laid the groundwork for modern interfaces. Number 6. Before the Windows Explorer we know today, users managed their files through the simple File Manager app in Windows 3.1. It was a groundbreaking tool that made managing files and directories much more intuitive for users, marking a major leap from DOS's text-based file commands. It introduced a graphical interface where users could easily see their drives, folders, and files represented as icons, making tasks like copying, moving, renaming, and deleting files a simple process. This was revolutionary because it allowed users to perform complex file operations without needing to remember or type out any DOS commands. The file manager also supported drag and drop functionality, multiple windows for viewing different directions simultaneously, and it had built-in support for handling network drives and floppy disks. By giving users a visual and more user-friendly way to manage their files, File Manager made everyday computing tasks faster and more accessible, setting the stage for the development of Windows Explorer in the later versions of Windows. Number 7. Windows 3.1 introduced the Alt-Tab feature for switching between open programs, something we still use today and all of us nerds were using to fool our teachers to switch between games and what we should have been doing back when we were at school. Control-C, Control-X, and Control-V. Now, while these had already been in use, they became widely used and an essential part of Windows 3.1 due to improved clipboard functionality and better support across different applications. Alt plus space opened the window control menu for the active window, which gave access to move, resize, and minimize. This allowed users to manipulate windows without a mouse, a handy feature in the era of limited graphical user interface control. And lastly, Alt F4 for closing programs instantly, making window management much faster. Number 8. The blue screen of death made its first appearance in Windows 3.1, though it was less frequent than in later versions. Previously, if an application in Windows became unresponsive, the whole computer had to be restarted, and any other open programs were lost. The blue screen of death gave a chance just to close the unresponsive program without restarting the whole computer. This was a big advantage with the introduction of Windows 3.1. Number 9. Windows 3.1 introduced the Basic Sound Recorder app, allowing users to record and play audio clips. This was part of the multimedia enhancements of the operating system at the time, where sound cards were becoming more and more mainstream. There actually was fun to be had in this app, as it allowed for changing volume, increasing and decreasing speed, and adding echo. You could also do basic editing by inserting and mixing files, along with deleting before and after your current position. Number 10. One of Windows 3.1's big features was the introduction of TrueType fonts, allowing for scalable, high-quality fonts that improve document creation. This was a game changer for both users and the industry. Before this, high-quality fonts were dominated by Adobe's PostScript system, which required expensive software and hardware to render professional-looking text, particularly in publishing. Microsoft saw an opportunity to disrupt that with TrueType, offering scalable fonts directly in Windows without the need for additional hardware. This sparked a rivalry with Adobe, as Microsoft aimed to make desktop publishing more accessible to everyday users. TrueType not only gave users the ability to see fonts on screen exactly as they would print, but also challenged Adobe's stronghold in design and publishing, making Windows 3.1 a strong contender in creative and professional markets. Number 11. Windows 3.1 was the first version of Windows that required a hard drive to install and run. Before that, earlier versions like Windows and 2 could hum along straight from floppy disks, but with 3.1, Microsoft raised the stakes, signaling that PCs were stepping into a new era where hard drives weren't just a luxury, but a necessity. This shift also meant software could get more powerful, more complex, and well, a lot less floppy. How much did your hard drive cost back in the day? Number 12. Users can also find an Easter egg by opening the About Program Manager. Holding down Control, Alt, and Shift, double-click on one coloured square of the Microsoft Windows logo. Close the window, open it again, and then do so with a different square while still keeping all the keys pressed down. Keep repeating this until the Microsoft bear appears. He will introduce the development team. The bear reveals their aliases as Bill G, Steve B, Brad C, and T-Bear. Number 13. Windows 3.1 was the first version to include Minesweeper, a game that became a huge hit in office environments. It wasn't originally made by Microsoft. Minesweeper was created by developers Kurt Johnson and Robert Donner before being acquired and then included. Minesweeper was so popular that some government agencies replaced it with other games, worried that their workers were spending too much time playing. Minesweeper was based on a game Mined Out for the ZX Spectrum home computer. Each level was a grid-like minefield, and it was your job to make it from the bottom to the top without blowing yourself up. You could move up, down, left or right, but there were no diagonal moves. The twist? You have a detector at the top left that tells you how many invisible mines are next to your spot, but it didn't tell you where. So it was all about figuring out the safest path. Step on a mine, boom, instant game over. The faster you cleared a stage, the better your score. And if you die or finish, the game plays back a replay of your attempts so you can laugh or cry at your moves. Number 14. As you watch me play, I can tell what you're thinking. Am I the world's best and championship player of Minesweeper? Well, no. There is actually a cheat. If you press X, Y, Z, Z, Y, Shift and Enter, and then Enter, as you move the mouse over the minefield, a single pixel lights up at the top left-hand corner of the screen when you are pointing to a safe square. So that way you could always tell if you're clicking on a mine or if you're clicking on a safe square. I wish I knew this back in high school. Number 15. Microsoft included Solitaire in Windows primarily to help users become familiar with using the mouse, which was still a relatively new input device for many people at the time. The game was designed to teach users how to click, drag, and drop objects, as these were essential skills to navigating the Windows graphical interface. Now, I've always loved playing Solitaire, but I did always set it to draw 1 because I could rarely win at draw 3. But there is actually a little cheat. If you press Shift, Control and Alt while you click on your library, it will only turn over 1 card at a time instead of 3. You're welcome. You'd be surprised how long it takes to put together 15 facts. A lot of time, a lot of effort went into this video, but I had lots of fun. Please subscribe if you haven't already joined us here at Nerdorama Retro Nostalgia. I would love to break through the 8 subscriber barrier that we're constantly stuck in. Now, I'd also really like some comments. What surprised you? Is there anything that you were really shocked by? What have I forgotten? Maybe I can get enough facts to do a video number 2. Until next time, please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!